Everybody, welcome to today's NBA Sharp Betting Breakdown here on the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast. I am your host, Michael Fiddle. Today is Wednesday, December 4th, and on today's stream, we are going to go over all 6 games on today's Wednesday slate. Let's jump right into it. I still do not have Drew Johnson because he is still feeling under the weather, and apparently his voice sounds like Doc Rivers. So he does not want to be joining the pod and making you guys all turn it off after a few minutes. So thank you guys for tuning in. Let's start breaking down this 6-game slate. It starts off with the Orlando Magic visiting the Philadelphia 76ers. This line opened at Orlando Magic -2. It has gone out to -3.5. We are coming off of a night where the Orlando Magic got smacked in the mouth. Both of these teams are on the second leg of back-to-backs. The Magic played against the New York Knicks. They almost lost that game by the full 37 that it would have taken to kick them out of the NBA Cup. It obviously ended in like the mid-20s or low 20s because there was a fourth quarter spurt where the Knicks stopped trying and took out a lot of their guys. But even at one point, and Josh Hart was admitting it. Actually, let's even show that clip. I want to bring up the Josh Hart clip. No, let's do it at the end of the show. Josh Hart mentions in the locker room post-game, did you guys know what was happening? And he's like, did we know that if we won by 37, something? And the reporter was like, okay, so you guys knew. The Knicks were actually playing for it because all of the starters were really gunning for it. They were really excited when they were up 36. Like, you don't normally see that kind of energy. And from a viewing perspective, first of all, holding a Orlando Magic to make the quarterfinals, I was sweating that one out unexpectedly. In a game that was Magic taking steam, the closing line 3.5 and an under 217.5 that moved to 214.5. That was the perfect spot to play a plus 37 and my Magic to make the quarterfinals at -350. When you checked before the game started yesterday, Magic plus 29.5 in an alt spread, while I was holding a plus 36.5 for all intents and purposes to make the quarterfinals, was -6,600. So holding a -350 is obviously a ton of value, but wow, was that a sweat. The Philadelphia 76ers had a crazy game of their own. What were they up? 25 against Charlotte, and then Charlotte makes a roaring comeback. They would end up winning by 6. Philadelphia wins the first quarter by 12, ends up having a 20-point lead for most of this game. And then it gets real tight at the end. Brandon Miller was absolutely balling. But in this one, the 76ers ended up pulling it out. They need every win that they could get. The total in this game, let me check that out real quick. It is at 209 now. It opened at 205. So we are seeing some movement towards the over. A lot of this has to do with Philadelphia's injury report. So let's pull up the injury report for Orlando at Philadelphia that Ian drops in the chat every day. Always have up-to-date injury reports when we go live on the show. We have Gogo Batadze questionable, Joel Embiid and Paul George doubtful on the second leg of a back-to-back. And then out is still Banchero, Gary Harris, and Andre Drummond for 2 more games. So the Embiid and Paul George being doubtful is probably why this line opened at 205. And then as we were discussing yesterday on the show, there's almost like an artificial lowering of the total when Embiid is out, but then you see it get bet over, right? Because he's so slow in the half-court offense. He loves to ISO. He loves to set you up. He loves to run high screen pick and rolls to then initiate his action on the roll. So for those reasons, they play a little bit slower. He's also historically a fantastic rim protector and paint defender. So obviously we haven't seen Embiid that much. We haven't seen the best version of Joel Embiid that much this season, but you're still seeing the same reflection in terms of the movement in the odds. So I think that's nice to attribute the -2 to 3.5 and the 205 to 209. You will get the total to move more than a spread on an injury because, I mean, for the most part, because totals are worth half as much as movement in a spread. So if we're seeing 1.5 points of movement in a spread, and you're also seeing 4 points of movement in a total, that kind of lines up to be what we think it should be. So I have no bets in this game, but it is the Orlando Magic taking a little bit of steam on the second night of a back-to-back on the road. Obviously, the travel from New York to Philadelphia pretty seamless trip. Easy one to make. So not a daunting back-to-back spot. It was a game where, despite Orlando losing by 30 for most of the game and getting blown out, they had to keep their starters in because they were playing for that Cup quarterfinal. So the starters played the whole game for the Magic side. If I'm looking in this game, I would be trying to back just one prop, which would be Jalen Suggs over 1.5 3-pointers. That would be the only place that I would look, and it's very fairly priced. I think there was even a plus money at like Bet Rivers. I could check that out too. He shot horribly yesterday, but the volume was there. The last I saw of Suggs' splits was like 1 of 9 from 3. So if he's going to be shooting anywhere near in the realm of that kind of, he was coming off screens and just shooting them up. That's the angle that I would absolutely love to look into is Jalen Suggs over 1.5 threes. Have not bet it yet. Have not bet anything on this game. Definitely an angle that I am looking towards. Unexpected day across the board where I'm going to start mentioning some prop lines. I do look at the prop market. I do mainly get my action in game sides and totals. However, didn't love things on this slate because, again, so many second nights of back-to-backs, so many well-priced lines, honestly, I felt like. So when I started looking and didn't get much action down, there was only one bet that I made on this entire slate, side or total. I started scouring the prop market and definitely came across a few things. So that Jalen Suggs over 1.5 threes prop is the first one worth mentioning. Obviously, that would drive the total over too if he started knocking down those trees. All right. Detroit Pistons are at the Boston Celtics. Second night of a back-to-back for the Pistons. Also coming off of a game where they got a bit smacked in the mouth. Welcome to the big stage, Detroit. You had a win and in yesterday for the NBA Cup East Group B. You took steam from +4 on the opening line to a close at Detroit Pistons +2.5. Chris Middleton did not return for the game. He is back at practice for Milwaukee, but he did not play in yesterday's game against the Detroit Pistons. And yet the Bucks took it handily. So we are still seeing that continuation of the Milwaukee Bucks really come back to form right now. And then the Pistons side, it was like, hey buddies, welcome to the big leagues. Welcome to when we start really putting pedal to the metal. Like, this is a young team. This is a team that's clearly improved. This is a team that's clearly a bit stabilized under JB Bickerstaff and the change from Monty to JB. But little too hot to handle were the Milwaukee Bucks last night. In this game, the line for the spread opened at Boston -14.5. We are now seeing 14 here on the board at FanDuel. We are seeing 13.5 start to pop up as well. So seems like there's some Detroit Pistons action coming in on this very long spread. Let's see if the Boston Celtics are back to health because they have some guys in and out of the lineup the last 2 games. In for Boston, Derek White, Sam Hauser, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis. Jaylen Brown also no longer on the injury report as he was dealing with an illness last week, so he is also in and good to go. Questionable is Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, and doubtful is Cade Cunningham. I was going to say let's grab some Detroit Pistons +14, but that doubtful to Cade snaps that opportunity away. Bet nothing here. I think the total has crept down a little bit. I remember seeing it at 222 last night and thinking, damn, that's a sharp line. So we are seeing just 221s pretty much across the board right now. No strong opinion, side or total for both of these games where they lie right now. Prop at this game that I did bet already is Jalen Duren under 8.5 rebounds. Jalen Duren, second night of a back-to-back, and in his most recent back-to-back, which was only like a week ago, played 13 minutes in the second night of a back-to-back. So we know he has dealt with some health stuff throughout the year. His minutes probably take a slight reduction on the second leg of a back-to-back. Prop for his rebounds was set at 7.5 with over juice, or 8.5 with no vig towards the under. Give me that 8.5 with no vig towards the under. That's the direction I want to look anyways. And I didn't even want to pay anything. Well, let's go. Even money, 50-50. What do you want? How much you want on this bet? No bookie tax on this one when you're playing plus 100. I mean, there is a bookie tax because it's baked into the hold, and then thus you're getting a little further from true odds, but I'll shut up about that. Jalen Duren, under 8.5 rebounds, is the only bet so far that I've made between these two games. And of course, that Jalen Suggs over 1.5 threes prop is one that's staring me in the face. The Los Angeles Lakers take on the Miami Heat in Miami. I don't think either of these teams are on the second leg of a back-to-back. Did the Lakers play last night? I'm checking that now. Sorry. NBA schedule. No, the Lakers did not play, and Miami did not play. Okay, I was right. Sorry, I thought I was bugging. Neither of these two teams played last night. We get LeBron returning to Miami. We have this Lakers team that's actually really starting to struggle. LeBron having a negative net rating on the season. Don't ask me why. I am a LeBron apologist. I will not give you a reason that you'll like. I'll be saying it's something quirky in the schedule. It's still him trying to integrate a rookie in Dalton Connect. It's the fact that D'Lo has really struggled in his minutes in the court with starters. It's the fact that the coaching is new and it looked great to start, questionable in the last week or so. And they just played a 5 games in 7 nights stretch where that's like the recipe for LeBron James to start like waning in his production because he's great off rest. Still for me, top 5, top 10 player in the league off rest. So for those reasons, all hail the king still. We'll look at the injury report for this one. Terry Rozier, Anthony Davis already considered in. Jimmy Butler has been upgraded to questionable after missing last game. Nikola Jovic still out. Kevin Love, Josh Richardson also upgraded to questionable. Austin Reeves on that injury report as well. So we've seen Miami take some steam, and we've seen some heavy movement towards the under. It started at 220. We are now down to 216. 4 points of total movement in both of these games. So in 2 of the 3 games so far. So if you got closing line value on either one of those totals, whether you bet the over 205 in Magic 76ers, whether you bet the under 220 in Lakers Heat, no matter where you stand right now, you would have playback value on the middle if you wanted to take it, but also letting those closing line value positions ride. It's also generally a pretty good idea. The Miami Heat -2 started at -1, out 1 point on the Miami side. Feels like an injury upgrade on the Jimmy Butler position. I played Jimmy Butler's under 19.5 points, noticing that this was moving towards the under, noticing that I personally missed the open at 220. And also, the Lakers defense sometimes just fucking sucks. And their defensive rating has been lackluster, to say the least, for stretches this season. There was a bulk of games, the first 16 games. I said LeBron had a negative net rating. I haven't checked the stats on AD, but through the first 16 games, the Lakers defense was better with him off the court. And I just talked crap about D'Angelo Russell. He had the best defensive net rating on the team, or the defensive rating with him in the lineup was the single best on the team. So very wonky ways to understand the Los Angeles Lakers. They say it takes 20 games. Who they say? Jeff Van Gundy says it takes 20 games to know who these teams really are. Let's look up the Lakers record. How far are we from knowing who this team really is? 12-9. It's been 21 games. I guess we could take away that this team is confusing as fuck. I don't really have much else to say about that. No bets for me, side or total on this one. Did bet Jimmy Butler's under 19.5 points. Indiana Pacers are going against the Brooklyn Nets. Can you find the bet that I made on this slate? Bingo, bango. Indiana Pacers. I played it at -1.5. It is at -2 right now. Still comfortable playing that change because we know those are not like the most important key numbers in the NBA. Neither of them are north of a 5% hit rate on that number. So there's a slight boost when you are to land at the number when you're at the number. So it's not the true representation of how often does 2 happen. When the line is at 2, it'll be slightly more than that. However, still not a key number. Neither is the 1 in NBA terms. That's because of late game fouling We are seeing minus 2.5s pretty much everywhere else across the board. Circa 2.5, DraftKings 2.5, MGM 2.5, Caesars 2.5. The only other one at 2 with FanDuel is Bookmaker, who I do say is one of the sharper books. Bet Rivers also still has the 2. This is going towards the Pacers side. We are still waiting on official news from the Nets injury report. I keep mentioning injury report. I think a lot of that has to do that we're like right after the Cup, and there was a lot of those intense games. And this might be, if it's questionable, make it doubtful type of night. Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson are both questionable. I think Ben Simmons is questionable, but expected to play is what's listed on the injury report. So let's call him probable. Andrew Nembhard, doubtful because the second leg of a back-to-back for the Pacers. And then, of course, the rash of injuries we already know on the Nets side. Zaire Williams, Noah Clowney, Cam Thomas. There's like even a few more on that list where it's starting to be a laundry list for the Nets injury report. I know the Nets started off competitive. I know Jordi Fernandez is showing himself to have some chops as a coach coming over from Toronto. However, this is a spot where if the Nets are so injured, if they're missing Cam Thomas, if they're missing Cam Johnson, that would be the next big one, the big shoe to drop here. I just don't see how the Indiana Pacers don't completely outscore and outpace this Brooklyn Nets. If we're getting into a who could put up more points, I mean, I know that's a stupid way to talk about an NBA game, but like who's first team to 100 here? Let's do race to 100. I think it's got to be the Pacers. The Brooklyn Nets team is one that I'm fading significantly right now with their injury report. It damn near could have been any team in the league minus 1.5 against the Nets, with the way that the Nets talent is so hollowed out because they're dealing with all some health issues. You're going to be going against Dennis Schroeder. You're going to be going against Nick Claxton, Ben Simmons. And that's why I really think Cam Johnson is the most important piece to come, because you just don't have the shooting and spacing to really break up a defense. You don't have the gravity that both Cam Thomas draws, that Cam Johnson draws, which then creates the lanes for Simmons and Schroeder to attack, which creates the lob opportunities for Nicholas Claxton, which sets up the pick and roll, because you can go pick and roll and then pop out to the shooters on the roll. There's a lot of options for the Nets that are just simply depleted unless their role players come out and not role players, but bench players just come out shooting unbelievably. Let's remember that the Brooklyn Nets were a 19.5 win total team before the season started. 19.5 was the win total number for the Brooklyn Nets. That's the iteration of the team that I think we're going to start seeing until they start getting healthier. They're playing some game theory optimal basketball. They're playing the math game well this season, but it is too hard to win that math game when you are depleted. Quickly, it is the second night of a back-to-back for the Pacers after losing in Toronto 122-111. Halliburton finally having a good road game. Shout out Dilante and the captain of the Halliburton Hive. Glad he played well on the road, and I'm actually glad that the Pacers lost yesterday, because for that reason, they're going to be pedal to the metal on this one. This is going to be one you don't slip up. We got Dilante commenting, Hallie Hive. Bees are buzzing in the Hallie Hive when he puts up 30 in a game on the road, despite playing against the Toronto Raptors. Nembhard, Ben Shepherd, and Aaron Nesmith are still out for Indiana. So you do have some cluster injuries to the wings. However, Mathurin will still be out there, or Benedi Maturin, as the French Canadians actually pronounce it. And the Nets are also very depleted on that side of the ball. So, we're looking at the Obi Toppins getting good run, but probably deservedly so, and probably at talent advantage in this game. Can't believe I said that. The Atlanta Hawks are playing against the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks on the second night of a back-to-back. Surprising for me to see the total at 236. And wow, as I say that, the board lights up, because I was about to say this is clearly taking some under action. When I went to sleep last night, This had moved from 235.5 up to 237, 237.5, and now we're seeing that come back down. Let's check some spread stuff on this game. I believe the spread has been pretty much where it is the whole time. Yeah, some books opened Milwaukee Bucks -4.5. BetMGM opened it at 3.5. Caesars opened it at 3, and they've met in the middle and said, we have differing opinions. We don't need to get in a fight over it. Let's make the line 4. So Bucks obviously playing fantastic. We just talked about the Pistons getting welcomed to the big leagues by Milwaukee. Milwaukee being totally back on their game. Ian, can you find me Bucks record last 10 games? I know FanDuel shows 5 of them. Win, 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 win. Bucks right now playing some DJ Khaled. All I do is win. And coming back from that terrible start to the season. So do I need to start finally sweating my Milwaukee Bucks under 50.5 season wins? Because I thought that was a lock. Chris Middleton should be returning soon. I do not expect him back for this game. He is back at practice. He is back scrimmaging with the team. But Doc Rivers called him out a little earlier than expected for yesterday's game. And I haven't heard any update to the news to think he might play on the second night of this back-to-back, although it is a home spot. So maybe we get, a late drop today of Middleton being back in. But he is listed as doubtful on the injury report. Giannis is in. Taurean Prince is in. Has Taurean Prince not gone lights out since I mentioned it about a week ago or 2 weeks ago when I was like, he is in a perfect role right now when he's really thriving? Rejoined Darvin Ham, as Darvin is one of Doc's assistants. Probable is Trae Young. And I think that's very funny that Trae Young's being put on the injury report for every game. Don't be surprised if Achilles tendonitis Trae Young, the guy who got fined, or the Hawks got fined for him missing or resting or potentially skip it, whatever you want to call it, an NBA Cup game to give him 5 days rest. And now he's just going to be on the injury report all the time so that they don't get, any more of those fines or whatever. Ian says Bucks are 9-1 in their last 10 games. Yeah, this team's back. It was an easy schedule run. And maybe the Hawks are like someone that can really hang with them. This Hawks team right now is improving. Trae Young being surrounded by Dyson Daniels. I think Ricochet is starting, but Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, Bog, like plethora of wings. And then the combo bigs, Okongwu and Capella, splitting time on the floor. I really like the way that this Hawks team is built currently. Finally having a good group around Trae. They are also 4-1 in their last 5. And you could say the Hawks are probably the surprise team that have made it to the NBA Cup. Now, is this the game? No, it's Knicks Hawks and it's Bucks Magic. So I was going to say, is this a little NBA Cup quarterfinals preview? But no, both of these teams are in the NBA Cup quarterfinals, but they do not play each other in the Eastern Conference side of the bracket. Minnesota Timberwolves are playing the LA Clippers. LA Clippers also on the second night of a back-to-back after playing and beating the Portland Trailblazers by 18. It was a nice little revenge spot last night for the Clippers, who lost at home to that Portland Trailblazers team earlier this season. Now they get the Wolves. Wolves have returned Mike Conley to the lineup. I think they were like 0-4 without him. So it turns out Mike Conley, although not playing well this season, a key piece to the Wolves. We also saw that last season when they made the trade. Was it last season or 2 seasons ago? When they finally made the trade from D'Angelo Russell to Mike Conley, that's when this team really started to take off. And even though Conley's dealing with a wrist injury, even though his shooting is way down, like his leadership, his veteran presence, his court organization clearly really helps this Minnesota offense. He was also knocking down some threes last game against the Lakers. So welcome back, Mike Conley, not even listed on the injury report. The only one is Kevin Porter Jr. that's questionable. We know Rob Dillingham and Joe Ingles are going to be out. So we have a pretty clean report. We have a line that's moved from Timberwolves -3.5 down to Timberwolves -2.5. I have no bets on this game. I talked about Timberwolves -3.5 yesterday when we recorded the Buckets podcast last night, myself and Joe Delara. Now seeing at 2.5, it wasn't ever a bet that I placed personally. It was the direction that I was looking at for the Wolves on the second I had the Clippers back to back, knowing that this Wolves team needs to come out and get some. So I would be looking towards the Wolves, but not going to fade the market. Not going to fade the market. You don't want to get humbled by the market, some would say. The total at 213 opened at 210. We're seeing a steady rise towards the over. 210.5 was the open at MGM. 210 was the open at Caesars. 210 was the open at FanDuel. Right now, Circa still hanging out at 212.5. So maybe we've reached its point where it's probably not going to go any further than 213.5. So probably pretty flat right there. We know Minnesota offense is shooting a lot of threes. They're doing it with good efficiency, but for some reason that hasn't led to a great rest of the offense, and the Clippers play very slow pace, especially if Kevin Porter Jr. is questionable and potentially out. He is a key kind of point scorer, shot generator, creator for the second unit. So that wraps up going through this slate. 6 games on the card. Pretty low action for me. I have Indiana Pacers -2. And then the 3 props that I played were Jalen Duren under 8.5 rebounds at +100. Jimmy Butler under 19.5 points. I think that was -115. And Pascal Siakam under 1.5 threes at -113 were the 3 props that I played already. Again, really looking at that Jalen Suggs over 1.5 threes. That is probably going to be something that I place relatively soon after this podcast. At least between plus money and -110. I wouldn't play more than -110 for that Jalen Suggs prop. Speaking of props and 3-point props, there's nothing more that I don't like watching than betting an under on a 3-point prop. Like, even though I played it on the Siakam thing because I care more about my bankroll than my level of enjoyment if I would choose to watch this game tonight. I probably will watch this game tonight, considering I have Pacers -2 as my main, Pacers -1.5 as my main spot. When I have an under 3-point prop in my hopper, every time Pascal Siakam comes up and down the court, I am going to be watching exactly where he sets up, exactly where he moves. I'm going to be not wanting him to reach out to the 3-point line. I'm going to hope the screens that he sets are screen and rolls. I'm going to hope there's less dribble handoffs. I'm going to hope that Brooklyn defenders, whoever's playing the 4, it's probably going to be Simmons, that's on Siakam a lot for this game, starts guarding him up front on the perimeter and giving him some trouble. Under 3s are just a brutal prop to watch. I'd even go as far to say over 3s are not fun to watch either. If there's any one angle prop direction that's tough to it just diverts so much of your attention from the game, it's the 3-point market on specific players. So there's one clip that I want to show before we get out of here, which is Josh Hart last night talking about the NBA Cup stuff, because hold on, I will go to his Twitter. Stefan Bondi tweeted it out from a New York Knicks beat writer. I have the link, but I don't want to just put it in because I'm scared it's going to remove me from the stream. So give me a second. We will get there soon enough. We will find this video. Where is that Josh Hart interview? Oh, New York Basketball tweeted it. It was Bondi was the reporter who put the quote, which I really disagreed with the quote, which is what I wanted to talk about. All right, I found it. All right, so I'm sharing this on the screen right now. It is Josh Hart being asked about the point differential stuff and if the Knicks knew what they were dealing with to potentially knock out the Orlando Magic if they were up 37 points. So Bondi asked, when you guys were up 30, were you aware about the point differential? Listen to Josh Hart's response, and then we'll talk about the rest of the quotes and the way that this is reported.
When you guys were up like 30 something in the fourth quarter, were you guys aware? I know you hate the point differential stuff. Were you guys aware of the implications?
Were we aware that if we won by 37 or more, that we would have? No idea. I think we were just out there just trying to play as hard as we can to the final whistle.
When you guys,
I mean, this fan's obviously trolling the reporter and saying, "Yeah, we had no idea that if we were." And he like literally finishes his sentence. What I didn't agree was that when this started going around and being aggregated, it says, "Were we aware that if we won by 37, we would have?" And then they inserted the quote, "Helped out the Celtics." Helped Celtics get in NBA Cup. No idea. They're literally putting that in the quote as if Josh Hart, that's what he was alluding to when he made no mention of the Boston Celtics. He talked about, yes, they knew they would be out. Yes, the outcome of that would have been the Celtics being in. However, like, you can't just put that in the middle of the quote. That really bothered me from a reporting standpoint because, like, listen to him answer the question. He makes no mention of Celtics or anything Celtics related. So for them to put the situational factors of the NBA Cup into his quote just did not sit well with me.
were you guys aware of the implications?
Were we aware that if we won by 37 or more, that we would have? No idea.
Why is it like he ends the quote with "we would have," and then no idea. We had no idea. Why is it we would have helped out the Celtics as opposed to we would have knocked out the Magic? That assumes that the Knicks knew and maybe didn't want, or knew and wanted because they were going for it. I just didn't like that the way that was set up. We're seeing Taylor saying, I'll go back to sharing the FanDuel odds tab. If you guys hang out with me for a minute, I could actually look on some of these prop lines for you. Taylor says, can't find anything under minus 110 for Suggs threes at the moment. Now, I know that was not true when I started this podcast, so give me 1 second. I will pull up what I have here. Oh, is that gone? It is minus 110 at Bet Rivers. It was plus money there a little while ago, and it was minus 110 at FanDuel. God damn it. It is now minus 108 at Bet Rivers. It just moved. And now it just moved back to minus 110. So Rivers would be the place to shop. I've talked about Bet365 on the podcast in recent days. That's a book that I really like to have for props. Bet Rivers is another book that I really like to have access to for NBA stuff because I feel like their lines sometimes could be a little bit slower to move. And so Taylor saying some sites have it at minus 140 already. Yep, that's why I liked it in the first place when I saw the current odds. JB says, sad Suggs over 1.5 threes for me is minus 141. Yeah, you ain't playing that, JB. Skip. Ian says Conley, Joe Ingles, and Gobert is sweet as the Utah Jazz take over this version of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah, I think that's all true. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you, everyone, for being here and tuning in. Thank you, everyone who listens on the podcast stream. We hope you come join the live streams sooner rather than later. We always get some great questions and comments in the chat. We're also having a bonus episode on Thursday evening. So I'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. doing a betting stream. I think we have 8 games to talk about tomorrow. I will not have Drew. We've just told Drew to take the week off. I'm going to be scouring for potential special guests to become joining me either tomorrow or Friday. Maybe one of them will be a solo show. Maybe we get some nice people in the booth with me if they are up to it and they have availability. If when I reach out last minute and say, hey, you want to be on live stream tomorrow? Thursday is a big one. Thursday is going to be a really fun NBA show at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be joined by AV, who is a longtime guest of The Advantage. If people are new and tuning in this season, you guys don't know AV. If you've been with me for a while, you probably cannot wait for him to be back and joining me. I've been told he's been the best guest by many of people. This is not going to be a betting conversation on Thursday night. It is going to be an NBA breakdown, just talking about topics around the league, what we're seeing, what we're thinking, and then we can kind of rationalize them into like how it impacts our betting angles in future days. But that's going to be like really just discussing tons of awesome topics around the league as we get to that 20 game mark, as we know who is really showing out, who's really questionable, where our thoughts are, what we've loved, what we've not liked, what we wish we've seen more of. So much of that stuff I'll be doing with AV. Quinn says, thanks, Fiddle. No problem, Quinn. Taylor says, lines for the cup already up to. I know. On this show, we talk about the games that day. If you want access to my action that I place well before the show takes place, then join the WHOP, which will be linked in this YouTube video, which is in my podcast description, which is in my Twitter bio. That is where you can get all access to my plays in real time. And we've also opened up a community chat aspect of it where people are talking about other games that they're looking at, dropping questions. So I think it's becoming a really great community. I hope to build up a nice, sharp community where we could all just destroy the books. It takes a team, us versus the books. Let's kill them. So that's going to be the plan. We'll be going over NBA Cup stuff next Tuesday. But for sure, be aware of those lines that are up right now. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We have Patrick Beverly saying, y'all subscribe to my podcast as you ask me all these questions. What I will say before we get out of here is that please actually leave a review or 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I have seen tremendous growth of this podcast this year since the NBA season has started, and yet not one new review has come in. So I know I don't often ask for it enough, but go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, leave a 5-star, leave a review, please. Even if you watch daily on the live stream, would be so great if you could just do that on the podcast feed as well. Those little things help us go a long way in growing this community. All right, here's some words from our man currently in Israel, Pat Bev.
Y'all subscribe to my podcast while y'all asking all these questions.
Don't forget to subscribe to the pod. And if you're a kid, listen to your parents. Listen to your parents.
Listen to your parents.
Subscribe to the pod.
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod, man.
Good, those are good.